Let's get some analysis on this with Jim Smith. He's a professor of environmental science at the University of Portsmouth, speaking to us from that city. Thank you so much for joining us on TRT World. Professor, did Japan have any other options here on how to get rid of that treated water other than releasing it into the Pacific Ocean?
Well, they do. They could keep storing it. So they've already built 800 giant tanks. But if you look at a picture of the Fukushima site, you will see that it's full up with these tanks. And what they need to do is to make space for decommissioning of the reactors, which are still there. And also, having them stored in tanks is a risk in itself because there could be a leak or there could be an earthquake which caused an uncontrolled release. And so I think what Japan should do is exactly what they're doing, and what nuclear sites all around the world do is to release this treated, very slightly radioactive water into the ocean.
So you speak about other nuclear plants doing the same, and I just want to understand some of the technical aspects of this, because Japan says all the radioactive elements have been filtered out except tritium or tritium. I'm not quite sure of the pronunciation there. This is a hydrogen isotope, I understand, and it's also discharged, but at higher levels by nuclear plants in France, China, the UK, even South Korea. So why is there so much controversy or fuss around the Fukushima nuclear plant doing it?
Yeah, so tritium, it becomes part of the water molecule. So we get, because it's hydrogen, we have to, the hydrogen the tritium becomes part of the water molecule. So it's chemically identical to ordinary water, and it makes it almost impossible to separate. So nuclear plants around the world all discharge this into water bodies, and actually at much higher levels in many cases than is going to happen at Fukushima. So in China, there's a plant that discharges about 4 times as much tritiated water into the Pacific Ocean as the Fukushima discharge will be. The same in South Korea. In France, there's a nuclear reprocessing facility that discharges about 450 times more tritiated water into the English Channel, and has been doing so for decades. And we don't see significant radiation doses even from these much higher releases.
So the environmental impact, is it negligible in this instance? Is China right in now stopping all its imports of seafood from Japan?
No. It's totally against all the scientific evidence, and indeed against what China itself is doing from its own nuclear sites. There's no significant impact. I've studied the Chernobyl accident and lakes around Chernobyl, including the cooling pond, and we don't see significant impacts on aquatic ecosystems, even at much higher levels of radioactivity than will be caused from this Fukushima release. So I don't predict any significant environmental impact at all.
Professor Jim Smith, thank you so much for explaining that so well to us live there from Portsmouth.